We begin the news at this hour with Nigeria and Brazil considering the possibility of establishing direct flight operations between their respective financial capitals of Lagos and Sao Paulo. Both countries also reaffirmed their commitment to deepening bilateral relations, mainly to increase the volume of trade and cooperation across solid mineral exploration, healthcare, and agriculture. Now, this followed discussions between Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu and his Brazilian counterpart, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, on the sidelines of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on Sunday. Nigeria and Brazil began diplomatic relations in the 1960s and have since collaborated in agriculture, education, energy, and trade. Now, joining us on the news is Dr. Ambrose Igboke, an international affairs analyst. Hello, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining me on the news.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. All right. So now Brazil's president has actually expressed a desire to restore strong relations with Nigeria. Do you believe new agreements reached and increased trade can actually foster improved political and diplomatic relations between our two nations?
Sure, I agree, because Nigeria and Brazil have a long-standing relationship for almost more than 200 years of relationship. Especially, we have strong cultural ties. Because of the transatlantic slave trade that happened 200-300 years ago, a lot of Nigerians were actually sold to slavery and found themselves in Brazil, and where the slave trade was, being over, and some of them bought their freedom and settled in Lagos. There's a place they call them the Agudas in Lagos, and there's a place called Coco Agudati today. So we have a lot of Brazilian returnees, those times that have settled in Nigeria fully, have become integral part of the Nigeria. So when you hear names like Fernandez, Da Souza, Da Silva, all those things are part of our cultural. So we come a long way, more than 200 years. And during Nigeria's independence in 1960, Brazil was the only South American country that was invited to the independence ceremony. And over the years, you could see that, especially in sugar, we had a lot of a relationship between Nigeria and Brazil during the time when Nigeria went into sugar plantation, where we went into sugarcane production. We had a lot of areas that were collaborating, sugarcane plantations in Bashita, Kwara State, in Newman, in Lafiaji, and some other places. That's when Nigeria was exporting sugar, meeting its domestic sugar need. I was even exporting sugar until the mid-90s, when everything collapsed. Then also, Brazil has it's an emerging economy, also like Nigeria. They were part of the group of 7 United Nations. They also that were a clique of nations. We share the same economic interests. For example, there's oil in Brazil. There is that is why we had their own national corporation called Petrobras, which is our own equivalent of NNPC. But their own has moved forward, and our own has remained moribund. So we need to start learning what they are doing right in their sugar, what they are doing right, for example, in the oil and other areas. Imagine that Brazil is producing aircraft. Brazil is the one producing the Embraer brand of aircraft. So these are some of the quality things that Brazil has transited over.
All right, Doctor. These all sound very, very promising. But still focusing on or emphasizing on the historical connection between Nigeria and Brazil, how do you see, our shared history influencing the success of these new agreements? Are there any, sensitivities or challenges that we should be aware of that might, come into play?
What may come into play is the willingness, the political will of Nigeria, of the Nigerian government to actually go to Brazil, do a study, and even ask some Brazilians also to come here, for example, to teach us and tutor us on how to become independent in sugar production is very important. It's also very important for us to learn from Brazil how they are running their oil companies and how they are making huge profits from oil, how they are maintaining refining capacity, and even
All right. We seem to have lost our connection with Dr. Ambrose Igboke, but thank you so much for joining me and also speaking on this. Now, moving on, let's also tell you that the Nigerian government has hit back at the opposition People's Democratic Party following its call for the resignation of President Bola Tinubu. Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, strongly rebuffed the PDP's demand for the president's resignation, questioning their credibility in solving the nation's problems. He noted that the call for resignation is nothing but a distraction since they could not effect change during their own tenure. Now, the PDP governors, led by Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, recently likened Nigeria's trajectory under Tinubu to that of Venezuela, urging both the president and the ruling APC to step down if they cannot offer solutions. The Minister of Information maintained that the president will not be swayed by such demands, and he remains resolute and undeterred by the challenges facing the country. Now, joining us to discuss this is Dr. Jide Johnson, a public affairs commentator. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Johnson.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and good day to our viewers all over the world.
All right, so now taking a look at some of the reasons that have been given by the opposition, as to why the president should actually step down. Would you say it is enough to ask for his resignation? And are there implications to the PDP asking the president to resign?
Well, I think that the one thing the governor of Bauchi State should understand is that to take a policy stand and with respect to whether the president should resign or not resign, I think what should be the focus is what are the alternatives the party as an opposition is offering beyond the rhetorics. We should leave rhetorics for election. And don't forget, until the Supreme Court ruled concerning the cases of these governors, all of them were kowtowing with the president. Now that the Supreme Court has affirmed their victory, that's when you see Bala Mohammed coming out to say that the APC-led government at the national level should resign. But the truth of the matter is that at the national level, there is neither APC nor PDP. They are just same of the same. Because if you look at the actors and the players across both political parties, everyone in government today has either been in PDP in the past, or APC in the past, now in PDP, or PDP in the past, now in APC. So I think it's just political rhetorics and drawing attention to himself. Don't also forget that it's evidently clear that Bala Mohammed has presidential aspiration. In the 2023 election, he collected both the presidential form for PDP as well as the gubernatorial form for Bauchi State to seek his election. The focus for the PDP is for them to offer alternative view. This is the policy that APC is doing. This is our alternative view beyond the rhetorics. And I love what Atiku Abubakar did with respect to the dollar exchange. We followed the trade over the weekend. Atiku offered a divergent view to what the APC government has done with respect to floating rate of the dollar of the exchange rate. So, and that should be the approach that the opposition should employ.
I was actually going to, speak on this, and, that's them working together, because countless times opposition parties have actually been called by the president to work together for Nigeria's sake. But then at the same time, in responding to this, the call for the president to resign, the presidency said that they believe that the opposition party or the parties lack credibility in solving the nation's problems. So there seems to be like a confusion there. But what then should be the president's strategy for engaging with these opposition parties so that they can come together and work together for Nigeria?
Yeah, that's why I said elections have ended. Now it's time for governance. And for governance, you need to put all hands on deck. The federal government needs to be supplemented in its activity by the state government and the local government. There must be a coordinated effort across the tiers of government and levels of government so that we can have meaningful deliverables of democracy. Beyond engaging in combative style of rhetorics where the opposition provides a policy alternative like that one that was provided by Atiku, I think what the government should do is to listen to that alternative viewpoint rather than engage in rhetorics, in argumentum ad hominem, attacking each other's personality and not addressing the particular issue. And I think that's the approach we should adopt. The government should be humble enough to take ideas that are coming from the opposition, which they think is practicable and is workable. Because if things go right in Nigeria, for every Nigerian, elections have ended. If anybody wants to do elections, should be looking forward to 2027. Now it's time for governance, and every Nigerian is looking forward to government at all levels. At the end of the election, policies does not look at you whether you're APC or PDP or Labour Party. The policies of government treat you the same way. The cost of goods and services does not distinguish whether you voted in the last election or you did not vote, or whether you actually voted for one party or not. It's the same for everybody. And that's the approach the political class should employ. They should understand that electioneering campaign has ended. It's now time for governance, and they must put all their hands on deck to solve this problem.
Okay, now aside, some of the solutions that you've actually, just given out for the president to actually, come together and make things work. In talking about the president demonstrating his commitment to resolving, what the nation is actually going through right now, how else can the president, or what else can he do to resolve or regain the trust of those who have lost confidence in his administration? And I'm not just talking about, the opposition parties, even the citizens themselves. It's
very clear that this present government, in terms of popularity index, his index is below 50%. Is even below the threshold of 35%. Don't forget, this government came into power with the slimmest minority. It was about majority of Nigerians voted against. If you join the votes of PDP and Labour together, you discover that it was much more than that of the president. It was about 12 million compared to 14 million compared to the 8 million which he used to win the election. So it's important for him to understand that he must, as a matter of policy, by action and by deeds, win back the confidence of Nigeria. And how do we do that? Look, he came into power expanding the government, bringing in a lot of ministers. He should have reduced the cost of governance. I was saying in a class before I came on show that I think the president needs to borrow a leaf from what the Argentine president has done. You saw what Milei, for the very first time in Argentina, they had a balanced budget. What did Milei do? The president of Argentina, newly sworn in, he reduced the costs of all ministries, departments, and agencies of government, their budget proposal by 50%. With that, they were able to achieve balanced budget. And I said it earlier today, why can't we put a hold on foreign travels for all levels of officials across board, including the president and the vice president and all other officials? That will reduce the pressure on dollar. If you look at the amount of dollar that is being used for foreign training, for foreign travels by civil servants across all levels, and the pressure it put on the exchange rate, then you understand that the major problem of Naira falling, the way it's falling, is as a result of government not being decisive in reducing its wastages in government. And if we do that, what Nigeria needs is just for you to provide the basic, you become popular with Nigerians.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jide Johnson, a public affairs commentator, for joining me on the news and also speaking in-depthly on this.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we also understand that the Nigerian police have issued a stern warning against any potential violence during the upcoming two-day demonstration declared by organized labor to protest against the high cost of living in the country. Police authorities made it clear that they will not tolerate any form of unrest, as they are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all citizens during the protest. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress has laid out fresh conditions ahead of the minimum wage negotiations set to commence on Monday. These developments come amidst concerns raised by the African Development Bank about the economic stability of several African nations, including Nigeria. With fuel and commodity prices on the rise, there are fears that this could further worsen social unrest. The federal government has ordered oil marketers to negotiate with the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners to avert the planned suspension of operations by its members with respect to the lifting of petroleum products nationwide beginning on Monday. Now, it was gathered on Sunday that oil marketers and the executives of NATO met about 6 times in the last 2 days following the declaration of the petroleum products transporters to halt operations. This move comes as independent marketers express worry over the continued crash of Naira against the United States dollar. as they stressed that the development could force the non-subsidized pump price of petroleum motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, to hit 1,500 naira per litre in coming days. Meanwhile, following the supposed withdrawal of services by the National Association of Road Transport Owners nationwide from today, Monday, many filling stations in Umuahia, the Abia State capital, have stopped selling to consumers. Only a few stations are dispensing fuel this morning to motorists even as queues return. The pump price for petrol this morning in Umuahia ranged from 665 naira to 675 naira. Now joining us on the news is our News Central correspondent, Chinwe Ugele. Hello, Chinwe. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from Umuahia. All right, so can you go ahead and give us an update of what is of the situation in Umuahia? Why exactly did the road transport workers actually go on strike? And we did hear that that some filling stations, or most filling stations, have actually stopped selling fuel. How is this impacting the lives of the residents of Umuahia? Hello, Chinwe. I think your mic is off because we can't make out what you're saying. I can't hear you. Hello, Chinwe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. As I was saying, in Umuahia, the people, the motorists have all tried to buy petrol or gas, depending on what their vehicles are using. But the situation this morning is such that most of the filling stations are not dispensing. Like the one I'm standing on now, right now, there's no vehicle here because they are not selling. And that is the case with so many other filling stations in town. But the few that are selling do have queues. There are lots of vehicles on the queue. You also have lots of people who have come with jerry cans to purchase for either their vehicles or for their generating sets. So, but then this, if not checked, will affect movement in the coming days. But today, as it were, we have lots of people who are confused as to how to go about their businesses with the situation of things on ground.
Okay, has there been any efforts to restore, normalcy?
Well, for now, none yet, because the government hasn't said anything about it, and neither has IPMAN said anything yet. I tried reaching out to the chairman of IPMAN in the state, that is Independent Marketers Association, but then the line was not going through. So for now, the situation remains as it is. In fact, as of 2 days ago, some stations had already closed shop just because of the letter that the National Association of Road Transport Owners issued, talking about withdrawal of services starting from today. And remember that this situation was, the letter was occasioned by what they described as the freight cost. It's become expensive for them. And so after discussing with Nupeng and nothing happened, they decided it was time for them to withdraw services. But hopefully...
okay, Chinwe, but what is their specific demand? We know freight cost is, expensive now, but what do they want?
Their demand is for the freight cost to be reduced. It has become so much. And remember that with the deregulation of the downstream sector, the private people, the private entities are now at will to increase pump price, increase price of freight, anything they just want. And because they have, they no longer have the control of government, so they are at liberty to tag price to whatever services they are rendering to the community, to the people. And that is what NATO is not comfortable with anymore. They have come out to say that the situations become too harsh for them, the economic situation. So it's either Nupeng reduces the cost of freight or they withdraw services.
All right, well, Chinwe, just before we let you go, you did say that there's panic buying in some of the filling stations that are actually selling. But have you heard of any civil unrest or even protest as regards this particular strike and the fact that petroleum products are not being sold in some of these filling stations?
No such thing is happening in Abia State. In fact, the people who I spoke with who don't speak on camera, they are tired. The people just laugh. They say, "It's the Nigeria we created, so we have to live with it." So there's no unrest, there's no protest. People are still queuing up to buy the petrol, even with its artificial scarcity.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chinwe Ogele, for joining me and giving us an update on this. We'll definitely, get more updates in our subsequent bulletin. Now, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has made a significant announcement aimed at alleviating the impact of Nigeria's rising cost of living. Speaking during the inauguration of the newly completed 12.5-kilometer challenge, Odo Onoelewe Elebu-Akpata Road in Ibadan, the state capital, the governor announced a 6-month extension of the 25,000 naira wage award for workers in the state. This is in response to the economic challenges facing the nation. Makinde was joined by his Enugu state counterpart, Peter Mba, for the inauguration ceremony, where they both reaffirmed their commitment to improving lives of their constituents. The newly commissioned road was named after late Chief Theophilus Akinyele, a former permanent secretary to the state.
So use this opportunity to talk about the meeting we had a few days ago. We, the governors of the People's Democratic Party, including my brother here, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, we met in Abuja, and one of the key issues we discussed is the economic hardship our people are facing. Our focus at this time is helping our people overcome the challenges of the times. We have been paying salaries and pensions without fail on the 25th of every month since this administration came into office. And for every year since 2019, we have been paying 13th month salary every year.
To take this moment to congratulate my brother, your governor, the people-friendly governor, and his team for the event we're witnessing here today, for the construction and completion of this massive 12.5-kilometer road. For me, this is not just an event to mark the cutting of a ribbon. It is a testament, a bold testament to the governor's quest of leaving lasting legacies to humanity. And that is what we're witnessing here today.
Well, let me say, Copper Construction Limited is known for quality construction of roads. We have been in the business for the past 35 years and still on. This road will be no exception. This road is built up of quality materials. We're talking of stone base of 200 mm. We're talking of binder course, wearing course. It has concrete line drains all over the whole 2.5.
In the latest twist to the saga surrounding Saturday's All Progressives Congress gubernatorial primaries in Edo State, another candidate, Namero Sunday Dekeri, has been declared the winner by local government returning officers. Now, this revelation marks the third time a candidate has been proclaimed victorious in what critics denounce as a severely flawed electoral process, casting a shadow over the party's commitment to internal democracy. Initially, the chairman of the Electoral Committee, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, announced Dennis Idahosa, a member of the House of Representatives, as the winner, seemingly aligned with the Senator Adams Oshomole faction. However, Dr. Stanley Ugboja, the returning officer for the primary, later declared Monday Okpebolo as the rightful APC candidate emerging from a parallel primary election in Benin. In the midst of this turmoil, Abdullahi Ganduje, the APC national chairman, has extended congratulations to the Idahosa, hailing him for his victory. Earlier, Andrea Mwanta, former Commissioner for Information, Edo State, joined us on the news to discuss this.
By saying that for democracy to work in Nigeria, parties must abide by their internal principles, their party guidelines as it relates to their elections, particularly their primary elections. And importantly, too, they must play according to the rules. Remember that sometime last week, the party, I think on Thursday, inaugurated, a committee of a two-fold committee to organize primaries in Edo State. First, we had a committee chaired by, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, and we also had on the other side a chief returning officer, Dr. Stanley Ugboja, along with 18 local government returning officers whose duty, of course, was to ensure that in each of those local governments, they collated results and submitted same to the state chief returning officer, whose duty it was to announce the results. And from what we gathered on Saturday, we heard Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo, was not around, not even in the country. He went abroad for an engagement. So the understanding was that the other members of the committee will be on ground, including the governor of Cross River State.
Still talking party politics, the suspended national treasurer of the Labour Party of Nigeria, Oluchi Okpara, has challenged the party's national chairman, Julius Abure, to give account of donations received from Nigerians in the diaspora during the campaign tour of Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi in the United States. The national leadership of the party sent Okpara on a 6-month suspension last week following her claim that Abure diverted 3.5 billion naira allegedly raised from the sale of nomination forms and fundraising activities in the build-up to the 2023 general elections. However, Abure maintained that the summary of the money that entered into the party was 1.3 billion naira as well as 800 million naira for the campaign. Thank you for staying with us. Now, Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, has cautioned citizens, particularly those with respiratory conditions, about an impending 3-day dusty haze. In a statement, NIMET advised individuals with respiratory issues to take precautions as the country braces for haziness and cloudiness spanning from Monday through Wednesday. The weather forecast indicates moderate dust haze across the northern and north-central states with a horizontal visibility range of 2 kilometers to 5 kilometers on Tuesday. It added that patches of clouds are expected in the south with isolated thunderstorms likely over several states. The agency also advised airline operators to stay updated with weather reports for effective planning of their operations. And now we move to South Africa, where as part of its outreach program, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group is visiting schools in and around Gauteng to raise awareness about teen suicide among teens, children, teachers, parents, with the aim of communities to help prevent teen suicide. Now, the program places a special focus on youth mental health, depression, and suicide. According to statistics, about 1 in 6 South Africans suffer from depression, although only about a quarter of sufferers ever seek or receive treatment. Depression is the leading cause of suicide in South Africa, with 23 completed suicides every day and a further 460 attempted suicide every 24 hours. Now joining us on the news is Fatima Sedat, spokesperson, South African Depression and Anxiety Group. Hello, Fatima. Thank you so much for joining me at this time. All right.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for having us on air.
It's a pleasure. All right, Fatima, so can you tell us why did your group choose to focus on raising awareness on teen suicide in Gauteng schools? And what is your approach to this sensitive topic of teen suicide, especially when engaging with teenagers in schools?
So the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, we are not limited only to Gauteng. We are reaching out to schools in the Western Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal as well. The reason being is because we are noticing that our learners are going through a lot. And with that, we're trying to create a supportive system and making sure that they are equipped with resources so they can and are able to reach out when they are in need of help.
Okay. All right, but then what strategies or resources does your group provide in order to help these teenagers to recognize and also cope with depression and anxiety?
That's such a good question. So the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SEDEG, we run a 24-hour helpline service, the only suicide crisis line in South Africa. And through the line, we are able to receive calls nationally from youth all over South Africa seeking assistance and help. So through visiting schools, we are then equipping the learners with our numbers, but at the same time, educating them about the signs, the symptoms, how to seek help, who to reach out to, so that they know where to go and reach out to. In addition, we are also encouraging them to be more supportive to the people around them. And through that as well, we're creating a safe space and a network where learners can count on each other, but at the same time, they know where to go if they need further assistance.
All right. Now, you did talk about collaboration earlier. Now, talking about the stigmas and myths surrounding mental health issues, especially in the context of teenagers. In what ways does your organization collaborate with schools and educators in order to support teenagers in distress?
So when we started our program last year, we were given an opportunity to work very closely with the Gauteng Department of Education. And through that network, we've been able to do specific talks targeted for teachers and educators. We've done the similar talks with learner support agents, and we are doing class-by-class talks with the learners at the schools. So between these 3 tiers, we are able to reach different people on different levels. And at the same time, through our Teen Suicide Prevention Week campaign, and awareness that we do spread throughout the year, we are able to reach parents as well, caregivers, so that everyone has ideas of warning signs and symptoms, so that when they are seeing or noticing these differences, they are able to assist their children or the learners that they are working with, or even your friends and colleagues.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Fatima Sedat, for joining me and speaking on this. We appreciate you for your time.
Thanks so much.
All right, away from that story, Morocco's Navy has rescued 141 African migrants on board a boat that experienced difficulties while sailing from Mauritania to the Spanish archipelago of Canary Islands. The rescue was carried out on Sunday, about 274 kilometers southwest of the city of Dakhla in the Western Sahara Desert. Moroccan Navy said the migrants had left the Mauritanian coast on 10th February. Last year, the Canary Islands received nearly 32,000 migrants, the highest number recorded since 2006. In January, Spanish authorities said they continued to record a surge in migrant arrivals to the islands, with most boats originating from Mauritania. The Rwandan government has faulted the United States for criticizing it over escalating violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, while expressing deep concern over what it terms the abandonment of the regional peace process. Now, Rwanda also says the international community is indifferent to DR Congo's dramatic military build-up, adding that DRC's massive operation in the eastern North Kivu region is in contravention of decisions made by regional mechanisms. Troops from the Southern African Development Community have been helping DR Congo's military as it confronts a series of armed groups, including the M23. The U.S. at the weekend condemned Rwanda's alleged backing of Congolese M23 forces and called on the East African country to immediately withdraw all its forces from DR Congo, but Rwanda denies backing the M23. Now, in other news from around the world, thousands of people took to the streets in Tel Aviv, Israel, calling on its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's resignation and an early election. However, Netanyahu has dismissed the idea of holding early elections. He has seen his popularity plummet in opinion polls since Hamas's October 7th attack that sparked the devastating war in Gaza. Earlier, we were joined on the news by Rolene Marks, a broadcast journalist, to discuss this. We apologize for not bringing that interview to you, but then 2 police officers and a first responder were shot and killed early Sunday in the U.S. state of Minnesota after answering a call about a domestic dispute in a house with multiple children inside. State officers said the shooter, who has not yet been publicly identified, is dead, and the 7 children ranging in age from 2 to 15 were all safely rescued, declining to provide information on how the shooter died. Tim Walz, Minnesota's governor, described the slain policemen's incident as quite unfortunate. They were responding to calls which were described as a call of a family in danger, as both age 27 and a 40-year-old fire department paramedic were shot. Multiple guns were recovered from the property, but police did not say whether they were pistols or more powerful semi-automatic rifles.
This is really a terrible day for the city of Burnsville, all of the residents, the law enforcement and fire communities that are mourning the loss of these public servants that occurred early today. Avenue South, on a report of a domestic situation where a man was reported to be armed and barricaded with family members in the home. We later learned that there were 7 young children in the home, ranging from ages 2 to 15 at the time of this event occurred. When officers got to the scene, the individual was barricaded, and they spent quite a bit of time negotiating with this individual who was barricaded in the home, and additional officers responded at that time. At one point during that barricaded situation, the subject opened fire on the officers in the home. At approximately 8 a.m., the subject was reported to be deceased in the home, and later that morning, those other children and family members were able to escape from the home.
This is a hard day. It's a really hard day for our public safety family. We're hurting. Okay, we're hurting. Today, 3 members of our team made the ultimate sacrifice for this community. They are heroes.
Ukraine's Prime Minister urged Japan's government and private sector on Monday to step up support for the country's reconstruction promising an economic miracle once the almost 2-year-old war with Russia ends. Now, since the full-scale invasion started, Japan has provided Ukraine with over $10 billion of various support, making it the 4th biggest donor. Dennis Schmigel told a conference of around 300 government and business leaders from Japan and Ukraine. Tokyo has also provided the Ukraine what it calls non-lethal support, such as aircraft detecting systems and mobile power generators. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Monday reaffirmed Japan's commitment to supporting Ukraine and its people in defending its freedom and independence and restoring territorial integrity, according to a joint statement. Now in business, construction has restarted on the $3.2 billion project to reconstruct the 1,443-kilometer Port Harcourt-Maiduguri 1,067-millimeter gauge line from the south to the northeast of Nigeria. The project also involves building new branches to Owerri, Imo, and Damaturu, Yobe State. Renovation of the line has been planned for over a decade, but after work finally started in 2021, it was subject to further delay before eventually stalling. The Ministry of Transport has now confirmed that work has resumed, although a completion date has yet to be revealed. The work is being undertaken by the Nigerian subsidiary of China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation. Atiku Abubakar, the People's Democratic Party's 2023 presidential candidate, shared economic recommendations in response to Nigeria's currency challenges. In a post, he proposed a managed floating system, advocating for a gradualist approach to foreign exchange management. Atiku criticized the government's adoption of a single window system for naira exchange rates, attributing it to the closure of businesses and multinational exits. He expressed concerns about President Tinubu's lack of effective policy moves to address currency volatility and poverty. Atiku emphasized the need for a controlled FX system due to inadequate reserves and declining oil receipts. He criticized hasty FX policy as well. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Nigeria seeks stronger economic ties with Brazil as President Tinubu meets counterpart at African Union Summit. We also told you that Meteorological Agency cautions Nigerians over dusty haze. And finally, you heard that Morocco Navy rescues 141 Africans off Atlantic coast. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.